Eric with Galt, and today I'm here with Christina Pisano of the Research Boutique. Thank you for joining us today, Christina. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad you're here to be able to share a bit of your knowledge about doing research for your business. I know it's something that I've learned the hard way. Really important. It's just so many things you think you know that you really don't know because you're
Yes.
going on your own inside in your head. So I'm glad that you're here today to share with us a little bit more about how to avoid mistakes that I've even made for my business and doing research. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No mistakes, just learning curves.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'll start out with the first question, and that's why is research important for a business, and what problems does it help to resolve?
That's a big question. I think it's important because I mean, people forget about research, but like any company that and I've been in this space 30 years, like every company does some type of research, big or small, but it's just really, if you think about research and don't get overwhelmed by the numbers or what comes out of it, it's really learning about your customers, your target market, the marketplace in general, the landscape from your business perspective, like whatever your landscape has to be, and whatever field you're playing in. But it's also like, if you don't think about it as problem solving, it's more about, yes, there's problem solving research, but it's also identifying opportunities, white space, and then taking that knowledge and doing refinement or evaluation based on it. So it's really just like insights, information that you're gathering from whether it's business to business or business to consumer, depending on your space, your workspace, that drives strategy. It just helps you make better, more informed decisions. And it's not just tied to like, it could be running your business as a service. It could be in the consumer packaged goods market, testing a new label. You design a new brand for your company. What do people think of the logo? People are so close to what they know and what they think is great. And it just sort of gives you that outside third party objective thought process. And it's all based on data collection. It's not like the researcher's opinion. It's based on analysis of whatever data is collected.
No, that is great information and a good thing to know, because I know that's the first thing we assume that our thoughts are everybody else's thoughts.
Yeah, that's a big one. And that's true, with the largest corporations I work with, people are so close to whatever they're, whether it's a TV show they're developing or a new product or a new service idea, they're so ingrained in the process and like what their team thinks that you kind of forget, oh wait, where might not be our target consumer here? Our target consumer may be a 19-year-old male who's like living on the beach in California. Yeah, and that's the thing about the research too, is that you design like the process, and I may be jumping ahead. Am I jumping ahead?
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
You just, the biggest thing you have to do for any research that you do is, use the word problem, but it's like, what's the objective? What's the objective of the research going in? And you could have multiple research projects going on at different points for your company. If you're a big company, you could have 20 different research projects, all with different objectives. But the research, each objective is designed to meet whatever specific need for that research study. And the research is designed around those needs. The methodology is designed around those needs. And then how you collect the data, whether you're talking one-on-one like we're doing, whether you're following that up with a survey among a larger group of people. So it's very fluid in terms of, and flexible in terms of the design process. But that process is super important, like making sure you identify the key objectives up front and using the right methodology for what your needs are is super important. Yeah.
That was a great lead into the next question that I had. And,
okay.
And that is, what are some research methods that you can share with us, maybe one or two that you could share with us that people can use or that you find most effective, particularly for small businesses? And I know it might be different per whether you're doing a service industry or products or whatnot, but if you could share a couple of those with us, that'd be great.
Yeah, and honestly, the methodologies don't change. It's more about the creativity and how you come in a more affordable way for smaller businesses, right? So the methodologies, I guess the structure first is just thinking about like, the methodology is part of that design process, but the research process is coming up and identifying and defining your research objective. We'll just think about like one particular project for a small business. So whatever that project is, whatever those needs you have, to refine or identify or solve a problem. You have to come up with that objective. You work with the research person, like somebody like myself. We figure out and help you refine that objective and then come up with the right design, which is where the methodology comes in. Once we decide on the design, and there's also blended methodologies. It might not be just one, it might be a 2 or 3 step process for that project. But then the next step is like information gathering, the data, basically doing all the actual research in the process, and then identifying and analyzing any data that you get. And then you draw the conclusions from the research. Again, it's not personal opinion, it's all research analysis that, creates these action steps for a business. So the methodology comes into play in sort of that second step. Like once you've identified your objectives for whatever project you need to do, you decide, big picture, it's like qualitative versus quantitative. And qualitative is smaller, more directional, like smaller sample sizes. Like if you think, I'm sure everybody knows focus groups, or you think on what we're doing is like a one-on-one interview. That's qualitative. So it's like smaller groups of people, but you get like this wealth of data just having conversations with them. And you could talk to 40 people, you could talk to 30 people, but it's still qualitative in nature, just by definition of it's under 100 people typically. And it's personal. It's like conversations, whether it be remote or in person. So you've got the qualitative, and under qualitative, like I said, it's either focus groups or in-depth interviews, they call them, which is almost like what we would be doing, where we'd be talking for an hour about a particular subject. And I'd be talking to 20 or 30 of us just to like get an idea of what everybody thinks. There's also in-home ethnographies, they're called, where if you want to really identify your target, these are on the more expensive side. Like for a small business, you may not do these, but I just want everybody to sort of have what's available in their head. Ethnographies are where you could literally like follow people around in their day in their life, go to their house, see how they live. Some of the bigger TV networks do that to see like TV viewing situations in a natural environment. Some brand people would do that. Some brand companies would do that. There's field work, going in store, talking to people at point of checkout. That's all under sort of the qualitative piece. And then you've got quantitative, which is survey work. So that's where you would gather sample, anywhere from like 200 people online to 2,000 people online, depending on how many people you need to talk to. And quantitative by nature, in this day and age, it used to be phone interviews, but now, that's gone by the wayside. Now it's all online, where you work with what they call sample houses, and you would recruit sample based on the needs of the client. So if you needed to talk to, men 18 to 34, US based representative sample, we'd make sure we covered people across the United States. We always get census representation when it comes to like diversity and things like that. Let's say you needed them to be either a current small business owner or potential small business owner. Like we would work with you to create like who you wanted to talk to. And then we go out and get them, and we do the survey with them, and then come back with all the data and analyze it. So all that's part of the design process, and all that is determined with the client upfront based on the needs. So, and it's very flexible. And for small businesses, I mean, this stuff can range to, I have huge corporate clients who could pay a ton of money for this, but it doesn't have to be a ton of money, because there's always creative ways to do research for not a lot of money. If you, and you still get the outside people that you need to talk to. Like we do, friends of friends pizza groups, like where, I'm not going to have you invite your friends, but all of your friends have to give me a name of somebody they know. So there's not like that direct connection. So there's a lot of inexpensive ways to do the research. Where you run into cost is when you have to actually go and get outside samples. So if you told me you had to talk to 1,000 people across the US, that sample, you have to pay for. A sample house to go recruit them. It's a cost called a CPI. It's a cost per interview. Gotcha. So if you're recruiting anybody outside of your like network, that's when you start, to spend money, but all doable on a creative, less expensive basis for small businesses for sure.
Got it.
So yeah.
Thank you very much. Now you did mention in your comments there was something about data analysts, or analyzing the data that you collected. And I know that sometimes the data might already be collected. And it's just from some of the research I've been doing in the stock market is this company called Datadog, for instance. What they do is they collect data, like say from social media and things like that, and I don't know how accessible that sort of data is for
Yep.
the general public, because I know they use it for a lot of times for their own resources,
Hmm.
or for Google does a lot of data analytics for you know, people's shopping habits and things like that, and they collect that. Amazon does it as well. That's when you go on
Hmm.
social media, on Facebook, you start seeing all of these things that you searched on the internet. I guess they collect the cookies or whatnot.
Yep. Yeah. They collect everything and they use it
Yeah.
internally. They use it for marketing. But when, with the data analytics, if you're doing like a custom project for a client, it's
Hmm.
their proprietary data. So you're actually collecting data. You're designing not only the type of methodology, whether it be like focus groups, and then follow it up with a quantitative survey to make sure like everything you heard in the focus groups is quantifiable, but you're getting that data. Like one of my jobs is writing custom surveys for people. So like it's all proprietary data. So it's different than like what you're talking about might be desk research that we'll do. Like if a client says, okay, take a look at all the secondary and tertiary research that already exists out there. Like, whatever they've released to the public, we would look at and sort of gather, but it's not proprietary to what the client needs. So
I
the
see.
data that we collect when you do a market research project is specific to each client.
Hmm.
And it's their own proprietary data. And it's specific, the questions are designed, or the conversation, if it's a focus group, is designed to meet their needs. So it's very, it's proprietary, but it's also very much designed to meet the objectives of the project. So, and that's, I think, that's the biggest thing, I think, for people doing it on their own.
Hmm.
The biggest thing I've seen, and I've seen surveys written, by other companies, like who think they can, and not so you can't do it yourself. You can get
Right.
basic questions like,
Uh-huh.
what do you think of this product? Like it, hate it. Like you can do that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing I think I identify with and see when people try to like write their own surveys or create their own focus groups is that they're not getting to the real need for the consumer, because they haven't been trained to ask the right questions to
Mhm.
get to what the need is. Like you may get a yes or no answer, but it's all the whys that really have to come out and come into play, that you don't necessarily get if you haven't had, I mean, not just like my background, but some kind of research, writing, survey design, focus group guide writing background. Just to make sure you're getting to the right answers that you need for the client, because that's so important, especially if you're spending any kind of money to get any kind of information or time to get information. You want to make sure that it's asked the right way, that you're getting the answers that you need in the end.
Yeah. Well, that was
So
a great lead into my next question, which was, I know you don't like the term mistakes. So I was going to say, what are some of the learning curves or some of the missteps possibly, but I guess it's about the same as a mistake. But what are
Yeah.
some of the things that people could do to avoid getting, or just for the sake of argument, let's just go with the word mistake, because I can't find
Yeah,
another
no, it's
word
fine. It's fine.
to replace
It's
it. Some of the things that
fine.
you could avoid, maybe avoid doing to help with your
Yeah.
research, like some things that it could just be deciding ahead of time or interrupting the process with your own information and
Hmm.
corrupting data or whatever. So, what are some of the things that
Yeah.
people do to avoid doing that sort of thing?
So I think it's kind of like a string, a chain of command. Like if you do get a data set, you have to make sure you're really looking at it objectively. And also, like any differences have to be real differences, like not perceived differences. If you're doing survey work, there's always like stat testing to make sure it's a real difference, not like just looks like it's a big difference, but is that a real difference? And if you're portraying this data out to the real world, is that a real difference for people to take note of? I think it's also undervaluing research, like knowing that like it's worth a conversation. And not just me, there's so many small boutique type research shops out there that work with smaller businesses, that like, even if it's working together to create a plan and a methodology, like, make sure you talk to somebody about the right methodology going in. You don't just assume that the right method or do research on your own about the methodology, because that's important too, in terms of whatever the objective is. Do you need to have these really great one-on-one conversations with people because it's just a concept or an idea right now, and you just want to hear what consumers in your target are saying or think about it, and you get a wealth of information just from having those conversations.
Mhm.
And if you're going that route, make sure you're writing the moderator guide correctly, leading questions. You don't want people to just be like yes, no. You've really got to learn to probe into the real meaning of what they're saying. So that's really important, like the design part. And then, like I said, the design of the actual design of the research, like, is it blended, is it qual, is it quant, is it survey, is it focus groups? Who you want to talk to is really important. And then, like I said, the actual writing of whether it's a discussion guide or a survey. So, I hate to say you're avoiding mistakes. It's just a matter of, like, if you have the opportunity to talk to somebody in this space,
Yes.
at least, even if you're doing all the research yourself to save money, let them come up with like a research plan for you and the methodology and all. And then if you have extra money and you want to go down the path of letting them design a survey or give you feedback, I work with a lot of clients who, to save money, will write the survey themselves and they'll pass it along to me, and then I'll adjust it as necessary to make sure they're getting what they need. But I think the important part is, like, really making sure you have the objective identified and the methodology designed properly before you move forward. And then again, undervaluing the need for research, because, like, every company does some kind of research, right? And it's so helpful. Like, the things you uncover when you do research, it's just amazing, because again, you're hearing from your consumers, whether it's B2B or B2C. You're going in thinking, oh my God, this logo is so amazing. Everybody is on board. And then you'll put it in front of, like, and it's horrible to, like, whenever I do focus groups and, like, clients are in the back room, whether it's a TV show or a logo, and then you hear your customers, like your target customers, be like, oh my God, that was horrible. Like, who'd watch that? Like, so, like, tied to it.
You just get completely disillusioned, right?
Yes, and it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes they do love it, but you get the nuances and you get to hear what your target really is thinking about something. And again, it's really important, that objective piece. And the objective opinion, it's not the researcher's opinion. It's based on who you want to reach out to and who your target is and what their thoughts are. So, and then taking that back, the other thing I would say is really important, whether you're hiring somebody to do research for you or doing it yourself, is has to be actionable. That's one of the reasons I started my own research company, because I used to run research departments in corporate America, and I'd get these projects back and I'd be like, what the heck, what do I do with this? Like, and I know research, but, like, if it's not actionable, there's no point to it. So you have to make sure whatever you do, there's follow-up steps. You incorporate it with your team, with your consumers, wherever it needs to be, and that there's actionable steps is the other thing I think is a big thing that a lot of even other research companies do incorrectly, without making sure that, like, your client can take it and run with it too, because that is so important.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That is definitely helpful information. Good to know. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't move to this next part, and that is, I know you've worked with companies large and small, and I know there's probably going to be someone who's going to see this video, hopefully more than someone going to see this video and going to think, you know what, I need to reach out. So what are some of the best ways for people to contact you if they'd like to hire you to possibly help them with research for their business?
Yeah, I have researchboutique.org. It is a .org. Is my website if people just want to see my experience and all. My cell phone, I don't know, do you put it out here or do you send it to people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, okay. So I know it's going to be a lot to spell, but if you can see my name in there, Christina Pisano, all one word, at researchboutique.org is fine. Or if you want to text me, 917-921-9865. And like I said, I do work with some, like, if you think of like big companies, big television networks, I do work with a lot of those people. But one thing I've loved doing since I came here to Erie is working with small businesses at affordable costs. So don't be afraid to at least have a conversation. There's no charge for a conversation, at least to hear out. And like I said, I'm more than happy to, do a brainstorming consult with you and then see where it goes from there, because, that's one of my passions, is to help the small businesses here. There's so many amazing people starting businesses or running businesses here that I would love to be able to help in that aspect from a research perspective. And again, runs the gamut, like understanding your customers, understanding the way your business is set up. You design a new logo, you have a new product, you have a new offering, covers everything. So it's so broad scope, but it's also gets fine-tuned to whatever your main objectives are. And we work with you from there. And it could be a plan, it just may be chatting to me about a plan, and you take it and run from there with like check-ins every now and then. But there's tons of opportunity. That's all I want people to understand, like whether it be me or somebody else, there's lots of opportunity to have conversations with researchers.
And not that the audience doesn't know this already, but I just have to validate you and just say Christina Pisano is absolutely amazing when it comes to doing research. She's helped me a lot with with different questions that I had in the past, and just kind of getting us on the right track for what we were trying to do, and even helping, giving me pointers for conducting research, which I end up, when I did that, I was just completely disillusioned, just so you know. People were giving me feedback that I was like, you know what, this is completely the opposite of what I thought I was putting out there. So yeah, so I highly encourage you, if you are looking for someone to help you with your research, to help move your business in the right direction, Christina Pisano, the Research Boutique. Again, Christina, thank you very much for joining
Thank
us
you.
today and sharing your knowledge with us. And anything else you want to leave us with?
No, I just appreciate it. Thank you. And I appreciate you all the work you're doing with Galt too. So thank you.
Thank you.
All
Well,
right.
that is all for today. Thank you very much for joining Galt. Until next time.